I am here today to talk about your first reading test and to go over the correct answers. And I'm assuming you have the test and your answer sheet in front of you that you can look at. Question number 1. The primary purpose of the passage is, and you pick the appropriate answer. In this case, the appropriate answer is C. Identify the conditions that led to the creation of NATO and outline the subsequent changes it has undergone. A is too strong. It was not a response to an aggressive force. For B, the Marshall Plan is mentioned, but it's not mentioned until the very end. So, I mean, it's like at the bottom of the 5th paragraph. So that's not going to be a main focus. And then the last one, it says, brings up questions. This essay does not question anything. So your best answer is B, and it is pretty much stated right there at the beginning. For question 2, in line 15, the word deterrence refers to, and you have to really know what the word deterrence means. To deter is to discourage. And if you look at all your answers here, the only one that works is A. The discouragement of attacks by other nations, especially the Soviet Union. That was the purpose of NATO. And that's the only one that works. If you don't know what deterrence means and you couldn't figure out from the context, that would be a tough question. If you do know what it means, it turns out to be a pretty easy question. All right, for question number 3, the purpose of the second paragraph, lines 10 through 20, in relation to the rest of the passage is to, and your best answer is B. Now, if you take the time to go back and look, and this is what the SAT people expect you to do, they expect you to go back and look and to take the time. The ACT test was much faster. They expected you to read quickly, and you didn't always have time to go check your answers. The SAT readings you do, and you're expected to. And if you go back and look at lines 10 through 20, your best answer is going to be B. Highlight a factor distinguishing NATO from other pacts. There is an introduction to that paragraph, and it says, it is, however, a grand alliance different from earlier alliances. And that's the second sentence in that second paragraph. There's your answer. The others don't work. A is actually in paragraph 3, but it doesn't ask you about paragraph 3. And C and D have nothing to do with this answer. All right, for question 4, the author mentions Napoleon, Kaiser Wilhelm, and Adolf Hitler in order to emphasize the point about the NATO alliance. Your best answer for this one is B. It was a peacetime alliance established to deter further aggression. Now, for A, Adolf Hitler's already dead by the time this NATO alliance is made. For C and D, they actually might be true if you know a lot about history, but they're not in this essay. They're not mentioned at all. So the only one that works for number 4 is B. For number 5, in context, lines 21 through 38 suggest that the formation of NATO occurred for all the following reasons except. And, you know, I can show you there in lines 21 through 38. B is there, the need for monetary, apprehension about the spread of communism. They were greatly afraid of that. And the belief that everybody could be made safer under the nuclear umbrella of the United States. The only one that is not there, A, democratic uprisings in France. And that doesn't make sense because France was democratic anyway. So, I mean, that's the one that doesn't work. And if you take your time, you can find the other 3, but I think a lot of people recognized right away that A made no sense. All right, for number 6, the author uses the example of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and they give you specific lines, and there's only 4 of them, line 50 through 54, to establish that. And if you go back and look at lines 50 through 54, you will see that C is your best answer. While the United States no longer had a monopoly on nuclear weapons, it had a greater number than the Soviet Union. A does not work. To say that the United States was no longer superior in the 60s, they still had an 8-1 lead as late as 1973. So they were superior. They just didn't have a monopoly. There is no evidence for B. It's not talked about. It is not there. And D is too strong. The Cuban Missile Crisis did not mark the end of the United States dominance in world affairs. it's maybe marked a decline, but it wasn't the end. That would be too much of an overstatement. You have to watch out for those overstatements. All right, for number 7, as used in line 55, superiority most nearly means. So if you look at line 55, we're talking about that 8-to-1 ratio. It's C, greater number. The others do not work there. That's really not one that you should have missed unless you just chose not to go back and look. For number 8, the Warsaw Pact is similar to NATO in that A, its formation was a peacetime reaction to a potential threat. B does not work because the word aggressive, there were no aggressive actions against the Russians that made them form the Warsaw Pact. It was just their way of doing the same thing that the Western powers had already done. C does not work because the Warsaw Pact were not committed to democracy, they were communist. And there is no evidence for D. Now, here's something that the SAT does that you didn't practice at all last year. Which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? Well, if you got 8 wrong, you're going to get 9 wrong. All right, there's nothing you can do about it. Now, the point is, the Warsaw Pact was not brought up till the very end. I mean, that's when it was brought up. It was in virtually the last paragraph of the essay. So the only one that works and the only place that it's talked about is lines 57 through 61, D. Now, I think some people looked at this and were just overwhelmed by the task, and I'm not going to go back and look at that many. It wasn't that hard. You just had to find where Warsaw Pact was talked about, and then you find that your best answer is D. All right, keep working hard. Last year's juniors reported that our practice helped them. This is a different test. You're going to have to slow down and go back and check your answers. All right, thank you very much.